Good afternoon, this is Boys of Fruit, and today I'm going to do a video on 5 different berries. It's very hot here. It's been over 100 degrees for multiple days, and we're expected to be over 100 degrees for many more days to come. So the berries haven't been ripening very well. They've been kind of drying up just because it's been so hot. Berries generally like it a little bit cooler. Sunny, but not as hot as it's been here. Anyway, the 5 berries I'm going to compare are the Triple Crown Blackberry, the Ark Freedom Blackberry, the Loganberry, the Tayberry, and the Marionberry. So I'm going to go over to each one of those, pick one off each bush, and then take them over to a table and compare them, taste them, check the bricks, and see which one's my favorite. So in front of you, this is the Triple Crown Blackberry. Let's take a closer look at one of those berries. So as you can see here, this is typical of what the berries are looking like right now. There's sun damage and they're starting to dry out, but luckily there are some berries on here that have not dried out, mostly the ones that are not in the sun. Let's take a look at some of those. So here's some Triple Crown Blackberries. These look pretty good. Not too dried out compared to some of the other ones. So let's pick a few of these, and then I'll go over and grab the Ark Freedom Blackberries next. So right here is the Ark Freedom Blackberry. This bush has been doing well this year, but it has the same issue as the Triple Crown. The berries are kind of getting toasted in the hot sun, so I have a lot of berries with a lot of damage on them. But I think there are some that were shaded, so let's go over and check those out. Lots of berries on this bush. Tons, actually. I'll show you just around the other side here. Here's a section that was shaded from the sun, and as you can see, in my experience, the berries actually like it more when they're shaded like this. They seem to do very well. And then next I'll head over to the Tayberry bush. Okay, right here is the Tayberry bush. I'm going to take a closer look at the berries over here. These are red berries, so significantly different than the blackberries that I just chose. So here are some Tayberries on the bush. They get small to medium size. These ones are probably on the smaller side, likely because of the conditions. Not my favorite in the past, but it's the second year I'll have tried them, so maybe they've gotten better. These ones are not quite super ripe, the ones in front of you. There are some darker ones over here. Let me see if I can get a picture of some of those. There's a darker one. That's kind of what they look like when they're ripe. Anyway, I'll pick some of these, and then I'll head over to the Marionberry bush. Okay, next up are the Marionberries. It's right next to the rest of the berries I've already talked about. These are generally a very good tasting berry, so it'll be interesting to compare them. They're on the smaller side, not as large as the other blackberries, but the flavor is usually top notch. So let's see if we can get a closer look at some of those ripe berries on the vine. Here's a little Marionberry right here. A little dried out from the sun, but overall, I think it'll do just fine. Let's see if we can see some other ones. There's another one right there. Good looking Marionberry. I'll pick some of these too. And then the last berry I will go grab is the Tayberry. So this is the Loganberry, and this is the last berry that I'm going to talk about. And this one is on the smaller side in terms of how big the vine is. But for that reason, it's also been shielded from the sun to some degree. So there's quite a few berries to pick on here that look like they're in pretty good shape. This does not have thorns, so the Tayberry and the Marionberry do have thorns. The blackberries don't, and neither does this, the Loganberry. So here's a Loganberry on the vine. Nice red, dark berry. When they're ripe, they get very dark. There's some more over here, as you can see. Lots of Loganberries. Okay, so I have the berries laid out on a makeshift foldable table, and I'm going to go ahead and compare them right now. So on the upper left-hand side, sorry about those chickens in the background. In the upper left-hand side, that's the Tayberry. Then in the top center, that's the Marionberry. Top right is the Loganberry. Bottom left is the Ark Freedom Blackberry, and then on the bottom right is the Triple Crown Blackberry. So let's start with the upper left first, and I'll talk about the berry a little bit, and then I'll go ahead and try it. So this is the Tayberry. So there's one that's not fully ripe and then one that is. Difference, of course, is just one is going to be a little bit sweeter than the other. Let's give it a shot. Let's taste it and see what my impressions are. So first I'll try the ripe one. Nice berry, sweet. Not super sweet, but also doesn't have a really tart note. Mild flavor, I would say. Has that kind of raspberry flavor that when you think of like a dark red berry. But not a whole lot of tartness there, actually. Pretty sweet, pretty nice. Not as sweet as like some of the other berries I think I'm going to taste, but pretty nice flavor. Let's try a slightly redder berry now. Not quite as dark. I went ahead and grabbed my refractometer too, because I'm going to check the bricks on all the ripe berries and then compare them. So the slightly brighter Tayberry, of course it has a little bit more tartness, not as much sweetness, but same mild flavor, mild berry flavor. Not super intense, not super tangy. So it'll be interesting to compare that to some of the other ones. Let's move over to the Loganberry. That's on the upper right hand side. The reason I'm doing that is I think it's the most similar comparison to the Tayberry, since I have that fresh on my taste buds. So let's take a look at a Loganberry up close. A couple of them actually. I notice these kind of just dissolve when you pull them off the vine when they're completely ripe. Very dark berry. I would say probably more purple than red. Very dark though. Very soft when ripe. Larger than the Tayberry. Probably comparable in size to the Marionberry when they're fully ripe. Could be slightly bigger, but definitely not as large as Blackberry. Okay, let's go ahead and taste one of these. Interesting. Much more tart than the Tayberry. So the Loganberry is much more tart. Not as much sweetness comes through at all. Let me taste one more that's even softer. Just one of these this little clump right here. Nice flavor, but not as sweet. So kind of do what you will with that information. It'll be interesting to check the bricks on these when I'm done tasting each one of these. Okay, let's move on to the Marionberry. This is usually my favorite berry of this bunch. It'll be interesting to see how I compare them right now. As you can see, this is a small to medium berry. I think they're very similar to some of the wild blackberries that might grow in Oregon. I grew up in Oregon, and I remember I have fond memories of picking those off the vine, kind of in the wild. And these remind me of that quite a bit. Just to show you a few more of those. So there's a Marionberry right there. Let's go ahead and try those. Sweet. Much sweeter than the other two berries. Tayberry is the closest in terms of sweetness. But overall, this is my favorite berry so far. So it's more sweet, less tart than the Loganberry, but sweeter than the Tayberry probably, or just about, and it has more flavor. A very nice berry. I'll try one more. And much like the other berries I've talked about, the ones that are the best are the ones that ripen kind of underneath the canopy of the vine. When the sun gets them, at least in this climate, they just get fried. So if you do grow these in a hot, dry climate like I'm in, Boise, Idaho, you might want to put shade cloth up, maybe like a 30-40%, and I bet that would really help go a long way in protecting them. Very good. Fantastic flavor. Not too tart, very sweet, delicious. Okay, let's move on to the next one. Let's go to the Triple Crown. These were a little smaller than I had them last year. I think likely because there was a tree in front of the plant last year that protected it from the full sun. This year I cut that back. It's growing again, a new tree that I planted, but unfortunately that means a lot of the berries got fried, and I think they didn't size up quite as large, but they're still quite a big size. Very comparable in size to the Primark. I have noticed this year the Triple Crown is slightly smaller, but overall they're very similar in size usually. So let me go ahead and try one of these. I'll try to pick the one that's the ripest. Classic blackberry taste, but not even close to as sweet as the Marionberry. So the flavor's nice. I mean, this would be a perfect berry for like a pie or something that you wanted to cook with. Out of hand, it's not bad, but I don't want to eat a ton of them because they are tart. They have some bitterness to them that the Marionberry doesn't have. So when you really chew on this berry, even when it hits you with that initial sweetness, you get a little bitterness. And so I would say Not as good as the Marionberry for sure. Let's compare it to the Primark. So here are some Primark Freedom Blackberries. These were a little bit more protected from the sun, so they got a little bit bigger. And they look like they're in really good shape. Let's compare this to the Triple Crown. Let me go ahead and taste it. I like this better than the Triple Crown. I don't know if it's just the randomness of the berries I picked, or whatever the case is. I got a little bit more bitterness on the Triple Crown Blackberry. Very similar though. All right, let's check the bricks of all of these berries. Okay, so I've tried all the berries. I've also taken a bricks reading on all of them. Tried to double check that, although the measurements were fluctuating. I don't have exactly a scientific setup here. All I have is a basic, simple refractometer. But how the readings came out is on the upper left-hand side, the Tayberry, I got a reading of 11 bricks. The Marionberry had bricks of 13.5. On the right side, the Loganberry had a bricks of 9. Bottom left, Primark Freedom had a reading of 13. And on the bottom left, the Triple Crown had a reading of 11.5 or 12, depending on which berry I tested. My preference for berries, if I were to choose, but number 1 would be the Marionberry. Number 2, I would probably say, with the size and the flavor, probably the Primark Freedom. Third would probably be the Tayberry, although that does have thorns too. Fourth would probably be the Loganberry. And for whatever reason, I was not a fan of the Triple Crown this time. They're large, but they're bitter. At least I was getting bitter notes when I was eating them. Just not super enjoyable. Although I have had good Triple Crown in the past, so, you know, these are all very close. But the clear winner is the Marionberry. The Loganberry has a really nice flavor, not a high sugar content though. So if you're going to cook with that, something like one of these berries, Loganberry might be the best option. Because I like the color, and they have a very nice flavor, even if they're not super sweet. If you put like a little tablespoon of sugar or something in one of those, and some like a mixture of that, probably tastes really nice on like a shortcake. Anyway, that's my preference. Marionberry number 1. Primark number 2, 3 Tayberry, 4 Logan, and then 5 Triple Crown, although those last 2 are very close. Hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you in the next one.